Hello and welcome to Storytime with Mr. Ryan. Tomorrow, on January 26th, we celebrate the birthday of Bessie Coleman, the world's first licensed female African-American pilot. You may have heard of Amelia Earhart, one of the most world-renowned historical female pilots, but the lesser-known Bessie Coleman had a difficult upbringing, but made the best of it in learning how to fly and in using her aviation skills to wow and amaze the world. That's why today we read Bessie Coleman, Daring to Fly by Sally M. Walker with illustrations by Janice Lee Porter. Let's hop on in. Ready to Fly, Waxahachie, Texas, 1902. Bessie Coleman's fingers bled. Her back hurt. Picking cotton was tough work for a 10-year-old. Bessie stared at the next pitcher's sack. It dragged on the ground as he pulled it along. It looked like a good place to rest. Stealing a ride on a cotton sack was just the kind of daring thing that Bessie Coleman would do. Plop, down she went. Bessie hated picking cotton, but she didn't have much choice. The Colemans were poor. Mama needed all the money that Bessie could earn. The only good part of the day was the end. Then Bessie got to do math, which she loved. She added up how much cotton her family had picked. The Colemans got paid by the pound. If the white man who paid them tried to cheat, Bessie wasn't afraid to set him straight. She was that daring. When the cotton season ended, Bessie was glad to get back to school. She went to a one-room school for African-American children. In 1902, white children and black children couldn't go to the same schools. Most schools for black children had little money. Bessie's school had few books. Sometimes the teacher ran out of paper and pencils. But still, Bessie worked hard. She planned to do more with her life than just pick cotton. The more she learned, the better her chances would be. Bessie didn't work all the time. When the library wagon came around, Mama rented books for her to read. At night, Bessie read out loud. She loved the story of Harriet Tubman. Now there was a daring black woman. She had led hundreds of slaves to freedom. Harriet Tubman had certainly done important things with her life. As she read, Bessie made up her mind. Someday, she would do something important too. In 1910, Bessie was 18 years old. She started college in Oklahoma, but her money ran out. She went home to Texas and washed clothes to earn more. While Bessie scrubbed and ironed, she thought about the future. If she wanted to amount to something, she would have to leave Waxahachie. She decided to go live with her brothers in Chicago. Surely such a big city would offer a chance for a new life. Dreaming of Flight, Chicago, 1919. Bessie was hopping mad. Her brother John was teasing her at the barber shop where she worked. John had fought in France during World War I. The women there were better than Chicago's black women, he joked. Some French women even flew airplanes. Who could imagine a black woman flying an airplane? Bessie knew that she could do whatever she set her mind to. Soaring high above the ground sounded daring and important, just right for Bessie Coleman. She decided then and there that she would prove John wrong. In 1919, flying an airplane was a new kind of dream. People had been flying only since 1903. Airplanes weren't used much for travel. In many places, they were so rare that people ran outside to watch if one flew overhead. Hardly any airplane pilots were women, and none of the women pilots were black. Bessie wished she could ask a black pilot to teach her to fly, but no black pilots lived near Chicago. She went from airfield to airfield, asking white pilots to teach her. Every single one said no. Some refused because she was black. Others refused because she was a woman. Bessie didn't give up. She asked Robert Abbott for help. He was one of her customers at the barber shop. Robert was smart and wealthy. He ran his own newspaper, the Chicago Defender. "Go to France," Robert told Bessie. In France, white people treated black people as equals. She could find a teacher there. But a ticket to France would be expensive, and so would flying lessons. Bessie got busy. She found a better-paying job running a chili shop. She took French lessons. She dreamed about flying. And in November 1920, Bessie boarded a ship and steamed off to France. Take off, Le Crotoy, France, 1920. Bessie ran her hand lightly over the side of the airplane. She could hardly believe it. She was 28 years old, and her first day of flying lessons had come at last. Bessie checked the propeller and the tires. She looked for tears and cracks in the cloth-covered wings. Good pilots always checked their planes before takeoff. Bessie climbed into the rear cockpit. Her teacher sat in front. The motor rumbled. The propeller whirred. As the airplane took off, cold air stung Bessie's cheeks. She was flying. After that first lesson, Bessie practiced hard and kept learning. Then one day, she saw a classmate die in a crash. Bessie was shocked. Her dream was putting her in danger. But still, she wasn't about to give up. She worked even harder on her flying skills. With each trip to the sky, Bessie grew more daring. Soon, she was flying on her own. 7 months of hard work paid off. In June 1921, Bessie earned a pilot's license. Now she could fly anywhere in the world. She was the first African-American woman to get a pilot's license. Her brother John had been wrong after all, and Bessie had made something of herself at last. It was time to go home and show the world what Bessie Coleman could do. Watch Me Fly, Long Island, New York, September 1922. Bessie gave her boots one last polish. A band started to play. The jazzy music matched her mood. For the first time, she was going to fly in front of an American crowd. More than 1,000 people had paid to see her take to the sky. Bessie climbed into the cockpit and pulled her goggles over her eyes. A co-pilot climbed in back. The mechanic started the engine. The crowd stared as the plane rolled across the field and left the ground. In the 1920s, airplanes often crashed. Everyone knew that even flyers with experience sometimes crashed. Would this black woman pilot be safe? Bessie soared high above the crowd. She glided through the air and landed easily. A perfect flight. Soon, Bessie was doing more than just flying. She thrilled her fans with amazing stunts. In Chicago, she glided so low over the crowd that people ducked. They gazed at the plane as it curved upward. Suddenly, it turned sharply to the side. The audience gasped. Had Bessie lost control? Not for a second. She turned the plane again and completed a smooth figure 8. Bessie's dives and rolls scared some people. She was risking her life with those daring stunts, they said. But Bessie saw herself as a flying actress. Her job was to show people a good time. She had another reason to take chances. She needed to earn money. Bessie wanted to open a flying school. She would need planes and a place to keep them. Those things would be expensive. Flying for crowds was the best way to pay for them. Bessie hoped that her school would help other black people make their dreams of flight come true. She worked hard to earn the money to open it. To win more fans, Bessie gave talks at churches and theaters. She talked to newspaper reporters, too. Sometimes she stretched the truth about her career as a pilot. She told one reporter that she had flown in 6 countries in Europe, but there was nothing fake about Bessie's flying. It was magnificent. In 1923, Bessie went to California, full of plans for her flight school. She bought her first airplane. It was a small used plane called a Curtiss Jenny. Then she set up an air show. As she always did, Bessie checked her plane before taking off. Everything looked fine. She flew the Jenny 300 feet into the air, and suddenly the motor stalled. The plane nosedived toward the ground. This dive was no stunt. The Jenny crashed with Bessie inside. Rescuers rushed Bessie to the hospital. She had broken a leg and several ribs. Cuts covered her face and hands, but she was alive. Bessie spent almost 3 months in bed. She was bruised and in pain. Her leg itched inside the cast, and worst of all, her plane had been completely destroyed. But Bessie wouldn't give up. She sent her fans a message from the hospital. "As soon as I can walk, I'm going to fly." Bessie kept her word. That September, she went to Columbus, Ohio. She borrowed a plane and set up another show. If Bessie was nervous about flying again, she didn't show it. 10,000 fans were thrilled to see her soar into the sky. This time, not a thing went wrong. Bessie looked forward to the future. She was ready to fly in more shows. Maybe she would try parachuting or a few other fancy tricks. One way or another, she would keep working to open her flight school. And she would help keep the dream of flight alive for women and men of all races. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this wonderful story about Bessie Coleman, a real historical figure. Truly an inspiration. Bessie Coleman was the first female African-American pilot who would go on to inspire a generation of pilots and people. If you believe you can do something, even if the world is against you, you can achieve it. Thank you guys so much for watching. A very happy birthday to Bessie Coleman. I encourage you to check out other videos on this channel if you like what you see. And if you're looking for things you can do at your local library, be sure to check out dillonlibrary.org. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be seeing you next time. Bye-bye.